do it. And then I'll show you what it does. And really, I'm just kind of showing you how to make sure you have Hibernate within your IDE. And for NetBeans, so it might be different if you're using a different one. And then I'll show you how to, I used XAMPP to do my database. I didn't use the other one. I've still got to go back and redo that eventually. But I did this Hibernate thing a couple of weeks ago when I found out I was presenting it, and it was the hardest thing. So I decided to try to learn as much as I could. But basically, it's just a simple connection to a database and then how it inserts into and pulls the value out. So well, that's not what I want.
We are live, by the way.
Okay, great. I'm sitting here rambling on. No. So can you see my screen?
Yes.
Is this Hibernate?
Yep.
Oh, and it still does if I blow it up.
Yep.
Sweet. Okay. All right. So Hibernate. So make sure you're gonna have to go back and check your plugins. And I know you guys know how to do that, but I'll run through it real quick. You set up a database. So the example I use is using XAMPP. You set up a simple table to start off with, just to make sure you can go back and forth between your Java code and your database. You create a Java web project. You don't have to use Java server facets, but I did in this demo. And then you use Hibernate to create a new database connection. And then you create a session factory object, and you create the Hibernate utility file. You don't change anything in that file. And then you create a mapping class, and the example is going to use the members class. You connect the mapping class to the database using the Hibernate mapping wizard. You create a managed bean class to add the user to the database. So the managed bean class is part of the Java facets. And then you create a command button to execute the logic, is just what I did. This is just a class that I'll show you in a second. So moving records to and from the database, this class is going to pull from the session factory object. So coming down here, I'm going to skip down to this. So if you're adding a record, and I use James just for you, James, but if you're adding a record to the database, you open up the session. By opening the session, begin the transaction, you save the variable M, you get the transaction and commit it. If you don't commit it, it's not going to go, and then you close the session. And if you want to pull a value, you go ahead and get members.class, and then the way I've got this set up is this is the index, so you've got to know your index number. And as you get more advanced on this, or I get more advanced on it, I'm sure that you can, instead of hard coding a name in like James, I can input a variable and save that to the database, but I didn't get that far with it. So that's the end of the slide part. All right, so is that being shown on the screen now?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. So this is the one I have running, but let's really quick show you what all that kind of meant as I was going through it. So if you're going to do the project, well, first you want to make sure you actually have Hibernate. So you go to your plugins. And first you have to make sure you have Java EE. That's not, it's already in there, sorry. So if you don't have Java EE installed, you want to put this part in. That way you can have the web applications. And then Hibernate is also in the same place. And you would install this one. So if you don't have those two installed, you may want to put them in there to play with Hibernate. So once you have those, you can create a new project. It's Java web application. Next. I'm not going to name it anything special here. You can pick your server. For the purpose of this, I'm going to use Glassfish because that's the one I have working right now. Hit next. I use Java server faces. I guess it's not a T in there now that I'm looking at it, so I had it wrong on the slide. And Hibernate, when you use Hibernate, you're going to create, okay. So I already have the database connection set up. If you don't have a database connection, you just hit new database connection. You're going to change it from Java to MySQL. You may have a selection of which connector to use. We're just going to use the older one right now. The database that we're using is user. And then you can test your connection, and your connection succeeded. And if you're creating a new database connection, you would hit finish here, and it should come out fine. If I hit finish, it's going to tell me that it can't be created because I've already have it. So I'm just going to cancel at that point. Well, actually, I'll go ahead and hit next and finish. And connection already exists. So we'll use the one we already have and finish it. It's going to tell me it can't connect to it because I'm already connected to the other one. But I want to go through this little process. All right. That's the one I already have. So this one, when you create this, you're going to have an index XML file that you'll be coming back to. You have a default package that has your Hibernate configuration file in it. It did not pick up what I needed it to, which I'll show you, but it creates your session factory here. And I'll show that to you on the other one. So we will close that up for a moment and open this one up. So here's the Hibernate configuration file and the things that you should have in it. You're going to have your dialect, your driver class, your connection to your actual database, your database name, username, which is root, and this particular database doesn't have a password, so it doesn't have a password line. And then this mapping resource gets created a little later when we make the Hibernate utility file. So this is the other classes. So here's a Hibernate utility file, which if we were going to make one of those on here, you would just, well, first we need to create another package. We'll just call it com.tuesday. com.tuesday, I guess it's fine. Finish it. So now we have a new package. Within that package, we want to create the Hibernate utility file. So you go to New and Other and scroll down until you find Hibernate. You're going to use this utility file. I'll just leave the default name in there. And this creates your utility file. And this is really creating your session factory object variable to, or object to pull in when you are going to use it. And it'll make sense in a second. And then the other thing you do is this mapping. So this is the Hibernate mapping, and this is going to map it. This is the one I already have set up. You're going to set your class name to your package. Your catalog is going to be your database name, and the table is the table we're going to pull from. So if I flip over to that in a second, I'll show you that database. Your ID name is ID. The type is an integer, and it is going to be your identity. So this is important to put in there so it knows that this is really your primary key on your database. And then the only other line or column that I have on the database is going to be the name column, which is a string, and you just close it off with name. So this is code that you would have to type. It doesn't generate this on its own. But to make that Hibernate mapping, this is the one we're kind of creating. So you go into Other again, go back to Hibernate. You have the mapping wizard. Next. In class to map, we would type in our new class, and then the database table would show up. But since I'm already connected on the other one, it won't let me connect on a new one, unfortunately. So once you make that file, it comes across and looks like the one we're looking at. Then we go in and do a members Java, and this is just setting up your ID and string. So this is your ID and your name string, and your getters and setters for this. So this is just a normal Java Bean class. Then we make the data class, and this is the thing that's doing the work for you. The managed bean, is just something that it's part of the Java faces. So you bring that in, and this is the code I was showing before. So all this said, let's go to this. All right. So this is our simple little database right now named members. Everybody can see that okay?
Yes.
Somebody say yes, please.
Yes.
All right. So we'll go back to Java, NetBeans. I'm going to go ahead and run this. I'm going to leave James right there for now. All right, and it's going to pop open. All right, so I'm going to add that user by clicking that, and then you go back to that database, refresh it, and there's James. See that ID number is 49, so if we go back to NetBeans, change that to a 49, and we'll change James to Seth. Keep everybody involved tonight. Run it again. And it pulls up James as the number 49 ID. I have to add user, go back to my database, refresh it, and now I have Seth. So that's basic connection using Hibernate, and that's what I got tonight.
Nicely done.
Questions?
Indeed, very, very cool.
Yeah, it takes a lot of the, like you're doing PHP right now, James. It takes a lot of the query language out of it. Although I saw somebody was posting that there is query language to it. I just haven't got that far with it. All right, so I'll give control back if I can hit the button. There we go.
Very cool. I don't have questions at this point, but I will probably have questions when I try and do it later this week.
Oh, one other thing that I just thought of that was, now I need to find the Hangout window again. Bear with me. I did want to show you one other thing, that if you're doing this, it may keep telling you you have an error, you have an error, you have an error because of aha, there we go. All right. All right, so I'm just stealing the screen back for a second. So within NetBeans, when you do all this, and if it's giving you an error, check your libraries and make sure you have this one, this MySQL JDBC driver. If this is not in your library, which it doesn't go in there randomly, meaning it won't go in there automatically most of the time, you have to add it. And it's all you have to do is double click on libraries, add the library, and it should be within your libraries, but it might not be within the project libraries. So just another little tip.
Good to know. Thanks.
Yep.
Yeah. Without SQL, it's very hard to interact with a database. So
yeah.
Cool. I guess it's me then, right?
Yes, sir. Show me some JSON.
I have not very much on JSON. But let's share my screen. There we go. So this is JSON.org, the one-stop shop for information on JSON, which stands for JavaScript Object Notation. It's really good for moving sets of data around because it's human readable, and very like intuitive. On this side over here, let's zoom in a little bit. This is an example of a JSON object, where it's like there's the root level and then value with a bunch of different object types, an array, that sort of thing. Member elements, characters. Neat stuff. In use, the example that I thought of was, inspired by Gordon Ramsay, because I've taken to watching him while I code. And so what we have here is using Java, specifically the simple JSON library. It's a very easy way to interact with JSON using Java. So we create the object, and then because it is, it shares the methods of a map, we're able to use the put method and identify a key and a value. So that's what is separated by commas here. So we have a diner with the name of Bernie's, established in 1967. And then if you want to do a set of data within the set of data that you're talking about, a linked hash map is really a way to do that. So for instance, for the location data, location is a construct of data comprised of a couple of different elements, generally speaking, particularly when you're interacting with a website or an application where you have like street name and city and zip code and all that stuff in different form fields. So it's better to separate it out than having it as one long text string that you have to parse. So for instance, for location, we put street at 1122 Boogie Woogie Avenue in Gotham, and then we place the location map, so this, into the diner. And then every diner has a menu, and basically I rinse repeat. I made a appetizer, entree, and beverage map, and then added them to the menu, and then added menu to diner. And then to output it, we use file writer, and then it outputs it to a specific JSON file that we can look at to see what it looks like in like text format. And then later on, see, I think it writes out over here. I did this very late last night. So yeah, let's run the program and see what the output looks like. Okay, so 6 and run demonstration. So basically it's outputting everything that was in the JSON file. So we get the restaurant established, the data within the location map here, and the data within the menu map here. And if we go into File Explorer, let's see, where did I put? I think it's here, yeah. Oh, and to use simple JSON, you have to import the library from the internet, so that's what that is right there.
You just added in the project the same way?
Yeah, the same way as you described earlier.
Okay.
So here is the JSON file from that was created. Hold up. Brackets is weird. Let's just use Notepad++. No, I don't want to update. It's just a constant struggle. Notepad++. There we go. So this is the format that JSON is like. This is what is called a JSON string, where there's no like white space or anything. And you're able to pull data from the JSON file based on the key, so you can get values based on the key, which is pretty cool. So you can import data from like an external source through like an API, and it'll generally throw you a JSON file, and then you can get the data that you want by extracting it through referencing the key to get the value. In my, I think it was the computer science Java programming class, one of the earlier applications was to build a Java application that interacted with your Twitter account, so you could actually see your Twitter feed in Java on the console output, and that uses JSON and APIs in that way.
That's cool.
In this particular example, the diner name is a parsed string from the diner object, and it's just a simple get method. And then for the map, just casting from map, diner object, get location. So you do have to know what the keys are to be able to extract the values from the keys. But generally, when you're interacting with an API in the README file, they will give you those. So if you're operating with a developer license, interacting with an API, that's generally part of the package. So yeah, this has been a, I guess, basic rundown of some uses of JSON. Any questions?
Nope, no questions.
No, I think you did good.
Yep.
Especially for a 1 or 2 day notice.
Awesome sauce.
Cool. Yeah, sorry I got to the group meeting late. I look forward to the video being posted so I could see the beginning of Ben's presentation there. I came right at the end there. So.
Oh, sorry, man.
Yeah,
it's really good.
Yeah,
It's way better than mine.
Well, as soon as the video is posted, I'll watch it again and get the what were we going over? Hibernation? Is that what it was? Yeah. So, anyways.
Well, very cool. Does anybody have any needs? I guess any questions in general about any of the various topics that we can go over as a group, or?
No, I think I'm going to work on JSON and servlets this week. So, and one other thing, forgot the third one.
Yeah,
I'm probably going to do Hibernate and JUnit tests.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I'm going to get going. Thanks for the presentations. You have a good one.
Cool.
All right, man. See ya.
I'll have the video up in the next half hour, hopefully.
All right.
Thank
perfect.
you.